I love junk radios, and this one qualifies. I don't know if it's at the top of the list or not, but it's getting close. I always wanted one of these because in my mind, if you were asked what receiver exemplifies the word shortwave receiver or amateur radio receiver, even military receiver, I think this SX-28 Hallicrafters is the top of the list. I always wanted one because it does look so much like what it's supposed to be, but the other reason is these little stern wheel knobs. I just always thought they were unique. At a Charlotte Antique Wireless Association meet some years ago, guy had one for $100. I almost bought it. Always was sorry I didn't, but I guess it worked out because this one was given to me. It had been sitting on the concrete basement floor for God knows how many years. So I don't know what it's going to take. I've been reading all of the articles on the internet about these, and they've got me scared to even try it because they are obviously very difficult to repair, especially to align. And so like I say, I'm kind of scared to tackle it, but I am anyway. It can't end up any worse than it is. What's worrying me a lot about the front panel is that there are actually some places that the paint has come off and they're rusty. And the problem with that is I could easily repaint this front panel, but then how do you redo these legends? They seem to be embossed, so maybe I can fill them, but then you have to paint the whole panel first and then fill these, so that you can't get them perfect. So how do you get the excess paint off? A lot of other radios like this, I've been able to take like 1,000 grade sandpaper and sand off the excess, just leave the part inside of the engraving, and then hopefully I can do that and not sand off that base finish. It's a bluish black from what I've been reading, and even if I dull that base finish, maybe I could spray some clear on it after that, semi-gloss or kind of a dull looking clear, so it doesn't shine so much. So we're gonna have to do that. It's got all the right knobs. This one right here, which a lot of time is cracked, doesn't seem to be cracked. It needs to be painted. This little lock here on this dial is kind of floppy. I don't know a lot about how that works. Have to see if we can fix that. The rest of the case has been painted a metallic blue, and I know that's not an original color. I don't think it was, because when they painted it, they painted these stainless steel or chrome trim as well. They sprayed blue all over those, so I'm sure that was some owner did that. And that's easy to repaint and get looking good. Looks like these screws that screw the radio to the box are original, and there's only one of them missing. It's a unique looking screw, so I don't know whether I'll ever find one of those or not. Let's see what's on the inside. Okay, first of all, looks like all the tubes are in place. Whether they're any good or not is another question, but doesn't look like anything missing. The pilot light socket's hanging loose. The lid is missing off of the VFO section. Since this is an SX-28A, the lid went on these little snaps, snapped it closed. So if anybody's got a lid for one of these laying around, I'm going to need a lid. It's about a 1/4 of an inch dirt on everything. Let's see what's in here. It looks pretty complete. I was looking here to see if those little corners that show up on the dial to show you what band you're on were still in it. I know they don't work. The dial cord on this operates them, and so I don't know whether they're in there or not. I can't see. Maybe just the cord, since it's broken, they're not up there where I can see them. Look around on the front. Yeah, they're in there because I can see them when I look at the front. Alright, so the dial cord is definitely broken. It's not operating anything. And so that'll require some work. Let's see what the back looks like. Well, first of all, the fuse holder is boogered up and no cap on it. That's probably not a good sign. The last user, whatever, must have had the fuse out of it, which could mean some bad situations. Some grass, dirt hanging out of the back here. Not sure whether it's rare or not, but these little, I forget, are these? Now these are speaker connectors over here, 500 ohm, 5000 ohm. Not sure what that 1/4 inch jack is for. I don't remember. These, I guess, are antenna. Yeah, I think these are antenna connections, and they're broken. One of them seems to be good, but 2 of them are broken, bumped up against something or whatever. And you can see that blue, metallic blue, that somebody has sprayed on it. And here again, I can tell that it wasn't original because there's blue paint all over this area here. A lot of overspray. So I'd like to take this thing out of the cabinet, but I don't know if I can by myself. I saw somewhere it weighs 80 pounds. I know I had a hard time getting it up on the bench by myself. When I went to get it, I took one of my healthy grandsons, and he picked it up like it was a tissue box and went to the truck with it. But I'm 75 years old and I can't pick up a tissue box. So anyway, line cord, which is going to have to be replaced as always. Pretty bad shape. I can even see blue paint on the inside on that, probably an IF can, or when they spray, yeah, when they sprayed the back of it. Don't know why. Why would they have done that? Especially pick up metallic blue. Oh well. Alright, we're going to get started on it, and we'll go from there. can say is, oh my God, I'm actually a little bit sick at the stomach. When I took the bottom off, one of these fell out. That's one of the little powdered metal, powdered iron cores out of these transformers. And the problem is there are 7 that are missing. I assume all of them had an adjustable core in it, and there are 7 of them empty. And then some of them are boogered up real bad. I don't know if you could ever get them to turn. The other problem is they don't all seem to be the same. These, and the one that fell out of the bottom has got a funny shape to the top of it, while others seem to be completely round on top, which may mean some inductance difference between them, and you may have to have the right core for the right coil before these things are going to tune up. So will I ever be able to find some cores for these? Everything else, except for being filthy and old, seems to be okay. It looks like both of these electrolytics have been replaced at some point. The transformer, it doesn't look like it's been boiling at any point. Nothing running out of it. So hopefully the power transformer is okay. Down here at the bottom is a bunch of resistors in parallel. Look like maybe what somebody was trying to create is a certain resistance value with a reasonably high wattage. Don't know what the right value of when in that spot was, but they look like they've got about 6 or 8 15Ks in parallel. As I say, the rest of it just looks dirty and what you would expect in a radio this old. Actually, the dial cord seems to be intact, and those little pointers on the main dial up there are actually moving. I didn't realize it until I took it out. So now I'm going to search around, see what I can find out about replacing these cores. Maybe I can find somebody with a parts radio that would have these coils. And if I can't find those, unfortunately, this may be a radio that ends up being parted out. I've never parted out a radio before. Something just kind of turns me off about that, but let's see if we can find any cores. Well, I finally got a chance to look at the schematic, study the schematic, and not all of these coils are supposed to have adjustable cores. So I may not be as bad off as I thought. These 2 here should both have adjustable cores. These 4 over here on the very back of the receiver, according to what I'm looking at, none of these should have adjustable cores. And actually one of them has a core, so does that core belong over here? And why would somebody take it out and put it over here if that's true? And then of course with the one I found in the bottom of the radio, if that was the case, then I have cores for these 2. However, A lot of these cores are unusable. I mean, this maybe is the worst one. You can see the slot is completely ground off of it. There's nothing to get hold to. I don't know how I'm going to work that out, and then I don't know what I'm going to replace it with if I get it out. Some of these others may be usable. I'm just going to have to see. And reading some of the restoration websites on these radios, evidently there was a problem with them even when they were new, that the cores were loose in the sockets. And I noticed there's one here, looks like somebody has taken a piece of burlap and put it between the core and the inside of the coil to hold it in place. So I think what I'm going to do, this is probably the worst one I've got to deal with, and this one is fairly easy to get out of there, I think. So I'm going to see if I can't take this section out and maybe take that coil off of that board and see if I can somehow work that core out of that one. And I don't know what I'll do next. So by unsoldering 2 or 3 leads, which, as the articles have said, are very difficult to get to. These things are a dog, but I was able to get it so I can tilt it back. I'm going to take this coil completely out and see what I can do with that core. So I'll keep you updated. So after about an hour, I was able to get that board back and get this coil out of there. I've checked the coil, and from the center tap to ground it's about 1.5 ohms, and from the top of the coil to ground is about 5.6, so it looks like the coil's okay. And the main reason I took this out, I hope I won't have to take the rest of these out, but I wanted to work with this core, this adjustable core, and see what I can do to get it out. I was hoping maybe that the other end would be open, but I should have known that's where that screw holds it on that board, so I can't get to it from there. So I've got it out here where I can work on it, and hopefully I can learn a little something about getting these cores out, that maybe I won't have to take them out of take the coils off of the boards on these others. Some of them are adjustable, but very few of them. And we're going to have to figure out how to make this work. Next thing I did was use my little LC checker here to measure the inductance. Another thing I did while I had the coil and the original core still in it, I measured the inductance, and from the ground side of that coil to the top of the coil I'm getting 113 microhenries. Let's see what we get from the center tap. And from the center tap to ground I get 6.2 microhenries. That's with the original core still in the coil. I'm taking that measurement because if I come up with some kind of method to do another core, I want to make sure that the inductance is about the same. finally got it out, and that's all that's left of it. I mean, it was wedged in there. No way. Well, I could have never gotten it out with it still inside the radio. However, the bad news is, in working with it, I broke my coil form. I don't think I've damaged the coil in any way, and I think just a little JB weld around the outside of that, I can repair that. I haven't measured the resistance of the coils yet to make sure they're still okay, but I think they are. They look like everything's okay. So we'll check that. We're gonna have to. I actually put a little WD-40 in. I actually got that core to turn about a quarter of a turn, and then it hung up and it wouldn't go either way. We're working with it with a screwdriver, and so I gave up on that and tried other things. Put a little WD-40 in it, hoping maybe that would make it lubricate it and it would turn, but it didn't. So here we are. Go on to the next step. So I stole a core out of one of these other coils that I was able to get out, and hopefully you can see how that slot is all boogered up. Makes it impossible to get out. The only reason I was able to get this one out, there's a slot in the side of some of these cores. Get around here where you can see it. There's a slot in the side, and it looks like there's a piece of insulation off the wire stuck in that slot. I don't know whether that's factory or someone did it, but evidently that's what they used to tighten that core up inside of that coil, because some of them are very loose, and so I was able to get this one out in whole, and so I'll show you now what my plan is. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know. So what I've done here is I have glued this slug down to a paint stirrer stick. I've got me another enclosure here that I'll super glue down. I didn't want to super glue the stud down or the core down because I was afraid I might have to break it to get it off later, but this will set over this. I'll super glue that down, and then when that's good and dry, I'll pour me some mold making compound in there, and what I will end up with is a mold where I can mold me some of these slugs. Now you ask, where am I going to get powdered iron or whatever, and after I get the mold finished and set up, I'll show you. Got the mold all ready, so I'm going to pour some epoxy rubber in there. Well, my mold is all set up now, and this is the little rubber mold I created. This is the slug that I used to create that mold. So now I'm going to pour, I've mixed up some clear epoxy, and I'm going to pour me a test pour. I want to pour just pure plastic in there, let it set, and take it out and see how well it'll screw in and out of those coils. This is just a test. This will be all plastic, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next, and what I'm going to do, I have no idea in this world whether it'll work or not, but I got to do something because a lot of these slugs are unusable. This section that I just finished here, this top one still turns pretty easily, but this one is completely boogered up. It's frozen in there. I've tried various ways to get it to loosen up and haven't been successful, so I don't know what I'll have to do to get it out. This one on the bottom still turns and seems to be usable, so I got to do something. I don't know where I could ever find any more of these. This one here on this section, I think it's still turning, but so it may be easier to get out, but it's not a usable item. There's no slot in the top. You can't tune it. This one looks good. This one looks good. This one is missing. This one looks good. I think this one I can at least get out. This one is the one that I took the coil out of previously, and I have repaired it where I broke it, and now I'm going to have a slug for it. Don't remember whether these, this is missing one. This one I think is tunable. This one may be tunable, but this one is not. It's all boogered up and I don't know whether I can get it out or not. So we're going to try some things and see how it goes. I have finished, this is the second RF stage. It's the third one from the front of the radio, next to the back where this antenna trimming capacitor is at. There was 1.05 under it and 3 resistors. I replaced them all, and all you have to do is you got to pull this shaft that I've already taken it out, but there's a shaft that runs across here that runs this tunable capacitor right here, and you undo it from the capacitor, pull it out. This has to come loose and push back in here out of the way, and then you can and undersolder this wire right here from T15 and take these 3 screws loose, and it'll pull right up and you're able to work underneath it. Not easily, but it can be done. So I've done all of that, and I'm ready to remount this, and I'll go on to some of these other sections. Well, my mold is all set up now, and this is a little rubble mold I created. This is the slug that I used to create that mold. So now I'm going to pour, I've mixed up some clear epoxy, and I'm going to pour me a test pour. I want to pour just pure plastic in there, let it set, and take it out and see how well it'll screw in and out of those coils. This is just a test. This will be all plastic, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. And what I'm going to do, I have no idea in this world whether it'll work or not, but I got to do something because a lot of these slugs are unusable. This section that I just finished here, this top one still turns pretty easily, but this one is completely boogered up. It's frozen in there. I've tried various ways to get it to loosen up and haven't been successful, so I don't know what I'll have to do to get it out. This one on the bottom still turns and seems to be usable, so I got to do something. I don't know where I could ever find any more of these. This one here on this section, I think it's still turning, but so it may be easier to get out, but it's not a usable item. There's no slot in the top. You can't tune it. This one looks good. This one looks good. This one is missing. This one looks good. I think this one I can at least get out. This one is the one that I took the coil out of previously, and I have repaired it where I broke it, and now I'm going to have a slug for it. Don't remember whether these, this is missing one. This one I think is tunable. This one may be tunable, but this one is not. It's all boogered up, and I don't know whether I can get it out or not. So we're going to try some things and see how it goes. I molded this item. I'm going to take it out of the mold and see what it looks like. There we go. That's a perfect reproduction of that powdered iron slug that goes inside of that coil. Now let's try it and see if it screws in this coil correctly. Wrong end. Look at that, perfect. So now we know we can mold something the shape of those slugs, and we'll go on to the next step. I went into my box of tunable inductors, and I picked out some here that may work. I picked them out for a couple of reasons. I've got plenty of these type here. The slugs are about the right size to fit inside the mold, and room enough for some of the epoxy to flow around it. So I intend to put this in here, put some epoxy around it, and mold some threads onto it that hopefully will fit this coil. Now, part I'm unsure about is this is a lot less iron than the previous slugs, the original slugs. And also, the other reason I chose them is because I can use a standard tuning tool on them, and that takes away some more iron because it's hollow in the middle. So I have no idea whether these things are going to work, and I won't know until I try to align it. But let's give it a try. Okay, got this ready to pour. One of the problems I had here was how do I get that slug centered in that hole so that the epoxy will flow around it. So what I came up with is I've stuck 4 pieces of hookup wire down the sides to hold, hopefully hold it somewhere near center. I also had to plug up that hole where the adjustment tool goes in. I don't want to pour plastic in there, and that's just silicone rubber, so should be able to peel it off pretty easily once I've done this. So I'm ready to pour some plastic. We'll see how it works out. I've taken this out of the mold, and this looks great. What I have here is a slug surrounded by plastic with threads that, we'll see if it I don't know if I can do this with one hand or not, but Anyway, I've already tried it. It screws in here with perfectly. As I said before, I have no idea whether this is going to work. I won't know until I try to align it. However, I did take some inductance readings on this coil when it still had the old original slug. Its slug was screwed all the way down inside, and it was frozen in there. I had to bust it up to get it out. In the process, I also busted up this coil form, but I repaired that with JB Weld. So I'm going to take this now and take some inductance measurements with this one and see how close it comes out. That's what I was concerned about with the original core. I don't know whether you'll be able to see this or not, but the original core, with it screwed all the way in, it was about 117 microhenries. With this one screwed all the way in, I'm only getting about 90. Now on the other primary coil, this one here, it reads about the same, about 5 or 6 microhenries on the low side. So that might be a problem. It's not tuning up as high as it should in inductance. I went and got one of the original cores, one that still had a good screwdriver slot on the top of it, and screwed it all the way in, and I get 124 microhenries. So that one that I made is not enough iron to get me where I need to be. So I'll have to go to plan B. Now I'm on plan E. And in my box of tunable inductors, I found a bunch of tunable slugs, and I've been trying them. If I just lay this slug inside of here or move it in and out, maximum inductance is about 119 microhenries, and come on out as low as 83, which pretty well mimics what one of the original slugs was. So I've got a bunch of them here. I'm going to take my Dremel tool and score the sides of one of these. The reason I'm doing that is so when I mold the plastic around it, it won't tend to turn inside of the plastic. And I'm going to try molding some threads on one of these. Problem with all of these is they've got these long threaded shafts. There's not room underneath there for that long shaft, so I've got to figure out a way to tune them. They have a nice little screwdriver slot in the end, but I'm going to need to cut that off, and I would never be able to cut a little slot in the end of that as small as those slots. So I've got to figure out a way to make these things tunable even after I get the threads on them. I've got an idea, but let's go ahead and mold one of these, mold some threads on it, see how it works, and after that I'll worry about how I'm going to make them tunable. Plan E worked out beautiful so far. You can see those plastic threads that I've molded onto that little slug, and you can see the little slots I cut in the side of the slug so that the slug wouldn't turn inside of the plastic in case the plastic didn't stick to it very well. So what we have now is a nice little slug that will screw in this coil form. I've already done it. I'm not going to screw it in now because I would need 3 hands to do it. I've got the camera in one hand. But this thing, when it's screwed in, is giving me inductance values just about identical to the original core. somewhere between 117 and down to like 83 when it's tuned all the way out. And it does have a peak because I can screw it in. It'll go like to 117, and if you keep screwing it in, it starts dropping. So this looks good. And once again, the only problem I've got now, I'm going to have to cut this long brass threaded shaft off, and then I've got to figure out a way to make it tunable. I've got to be able to get some kind of device on it. There's no tuning tool that is going to work on this. My idea is I'm going to put a nut, after I cut this off, I'm going to put a nut on it the right size on these threads, and maybe solder the nut to the shaft, and then I'll be able to turn the nut. Probably have to do it with my fingers, and even though that may affect the inductance some, I think I can keep rocking it back and forth and find the peak. So as I said, this looks real good, and I won't know whether it's going to work or not until I actually get a working radio and able to align it. But I'm going to make a few more of these. I've got some other slugs here that just by moving them in and out of the coil, you know, I've got a range of inductances. You can see how much longer this one is, and you get different readings with that. That one goes all the way up to 130 at maximum. So I may make a few of these different inductance values. I got plenty more over here to, if I need to make some later on. I've got plenty of slugs that I can mold, and if I need something lower or higher, because I'm not sure these original cores were they're all the same or whether there were different characteristics depending on the frequency range of the coil. So got to figure all that out. So you can see what I've done here. I soldered a little nut onto that threaded shaft, then I cut the shaft off. So now I've got a nice little handle that I can tune that in. Not insulated handle, but looking at the inductance here, my fingers don't seem to affect it more than maybe 1/10 of a microhenry. And bottomed out, it's 109. As I screw it out, it peaks at 100 and about 117, which is exactly where the original did. I keep screwing out. I can get out to in the 80s, which was exactly what the original did. So alright, I'm going to make a few more using this technique, and hopefully when we get around to aligning this receiver, it'll work.